Mm.
So are we set?
And we are.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
we're live.
all right. So welcome everyone. Few announcements before we get started. My Model Method Coach training, the second session of that is going from the 26th to March 1st. And then Ignite the Buying Conversation will be in March from 12th to the 14th and 19th through 21. The next 5-day business challenge is beginning on March 3rd. And I had hoped that Jane would be able to put the link in for me, but Blair, could you put the link to that in the chat?
I will in a minute.
Okay. Anyway, the link to the 5-day business challenge beginning in March. That 5-day business challenge is at, at no cost from noon until 1 Eastern time. So you can back that up depending on what time zone you're in. And then Blair's insider notes, excuse me, where you get all the historical and ongoing notes for the Blair Dunkley experience, starting with episode 318. And we are on episode 333 tonight. So that's a lot of back material that you can have access to for $25 a month or $300 a year. So with that, we'll just start the introduction. My name is Patty, and welcome to the 333rd episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of Mind Models. My name is Patty. I am a certified mind model method coach and your co-host for tonight. The Blair Dunkley Experience is Blair's free gift to you, and it's an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. Personally, mind models helped me overcome more than a decade of depression. They have positively impacted every area of my life, including my relationship with myself. So we look forward to learning with you tonight and welcome you to the Blair Dunkley Experience. Excuse me. With that, we're going to start new material tonight. And the new material is called The Grayscale of Fear. So when we speak about a grayscale, we're talking about something that is on a continuum. And we're looking at a range. So with the range of fear, what does that, excuse me, what does that look like? It can go any place from unease, worry, alarm, concern, doubt, and anxiety to the other end of panic, terror, and horror. There are 110 antonyms and synonyms for fear in the thesaurus. So when we talk about naming and labeling, we talk about fear, it can be anywhere on that spectrum. The brain records vivid imagination as a real experience. It doesn't differentiate between the real and the vivid imagination. And so with that, when you're exposing yourself to vividly reliving an experience or vividly reliving something you've seen in a movie or the vivid imagination that sometimes goes along with books, you can begin to create neural pathways that are ineffective for you. You can implant fear or you can foster it and cause it to grow. And that gets into the mind model called relive versus or remember versus relive. So remembering goes on in the front part of your brain, whereas reliving goes on in the back part of your brain. And what we do with mind models is we learn to navigate our brains based on neuroscience. So the back of the brain tends to have that fight, flight, freeze, that, excuse me, the more emotional triggers in the back. And the front is more of our logical processing area, the prefrontal cortex. What Blair discovered with mind models is that curiosity is the bridge between the back of the brain and the front of the brain. When we're in the back of the brain, our brains gray out or brown out. Even the oxygenation in the front of our brain decreases and we lose our ability to analytically or logically process. So with fear, another mind model, which is the acronym FEAR, future events appearing real. We want to stay out of future events appearing real. You have to know that we haven't experienced those things yet. So they are not real, even though they may feel real inside of us. So my question then for you is, what is your relationship with fear? So Brent, I'm going to ask you to start that. What is your relationship with fear?
Okay. Relationship with fear. Relationship with fear.
Yeah, what is your relationship
I
with
would
fear?
say now it's something I can use as a gauge to where I'm at. Um,
What
you
does
know,
that mean?
as if I'm, is like present, or if I'm focusing on
Okay,
something that's out in the future,
okay,
worrying about something. And possibly, and then the as you mentioned earlier, like the scale of emotions, the emotions tied with that to gauge like how much that's affecting how strong are those emotions,
mhm.
and how much of a grasp, like strong that fear is, so that way I
You
can
mentioned you
evaluate it.
mentioned now when you were responding.
Yeah.
Have
hmm
did you experience a different pattern in the past prior to using mind models?
Yeah, I would say it was, from what I can recall, would be staying a longer time focusing on those events, the future events, that weren't there, that didn't happen now, or that I was expecting to happen, based
Hmm.
off of things that happened in the past experiences, to what might happen next, and then focus more on that, stay in that moment longer, instead of doing something now, so it would just keep me in a state of a more a stuck state,
Okay,
so a longer time in that state of being stuck and not taking action.
okay. Thank you, Brent. Leslie,
Mhm.
what is your relationship with fear?
Um, what comes to mind is, you know, when when have I experienced fear? And I think the worst time was back when my first business partner passed away.
Mm,
But having learned to deal with that, um, I think I've been very troubled over things over the course of time, but it's a recent time. I I'm having difficulty trying to recall a situation where I've really had fear.
Can you relate more to worry or doubt than you can to fear?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Definitely the doubt. Just not sure of whether things are going to happen the way that they've been planned.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my, my, my saying that last week Blair caught me saying was delusions of adequacy,
Yeah.
um, which is, yeah, sometimes that is exactly what does pop up into mind, but it's more and more I'm able to chuckle about it, thank goodness, than actually doing it. And yeah,
So
and
have the mind models impacted your relationship with doubt then?
yes, yes, they have. They've taught me how to stay in the present, how to evaluate whether a situation is effective, what I'm doing is effective or ineffective. The 3 E's definitely um, are huge. One thing too that I've been able to start to do more of is name and label. Last week was a difficult week for me with it being 3 years ago that I lost my oldest brother, and then 3 months later I lost my other brother.
Well,
Very stressful.
That was you. You joined us not too long after that, wasn't it?
Yes,
You joined us not too long after those things had happened. Is that right?
that is correct.
Okay.
And yeah, it's so yeah, it was a sad time, but I didn't realize it. Did some bad trading moves. Um, did not feel very good about what I was doing, and I was able to stop myself and say, "What the heck's really going on here?" And I was able to name and label that. Yeah, um, I'm sad because I lost my brother, and
Mhm.
another 3 months, I'll be reminded of losing my other brother in the same year.
So you're having some anniversary feelings then.
Yeah, that aren't good.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
no, after naming and labeling them, I was able to figure it out and bring myself back into the now and start functioning.
How do you get yourself back into now, Leslie? What do you do to get yourself back into now?
Well, pertinent to to last week, yeah, I had a good cry, thought about it, did some reviewing of times that we have had together, and it was a grieving process, but allowed myself to do it. And then when it was over, it was definitely, yeah, okay. We got to do something else. So I can't remember exactly what I did. I think I went out and tried to break up some of the ice out of the laneway and just started doing other things and getting some fresh air and moving around a bit. And it got out of it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I cooked.
If
And I
you,
cooked.
By the way,
yeah, go ahead.
notice that your story moves you in your story from the past into the present and from reliving into remembering, but then shifting from even remembering into present action.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah. There's a definite flow there.
yeah.
Yes, Jane.
So as I was thinking about, what you've been saying and whatnot, I can recall the times that I felt fear in the present was when I was physically in danger, middle of a car accident. I took a really bad tumble, in fact, a couple of them, downhill skiing. And one of those, the fear was during the episode. It was a very icy, very steep, uh, expert hill,
Mhm.
and the ice was so bad when I lost traction and I was going down the mountain head first. Real fear. I was physically in danger. But all the other instances where I've felt fear, especially, if I think of it from a mental or emotional, was a past future thing. I'm fearing about what's going to happen rather than what's happening right now.
Mhm.
I think that that's interesting that physical danger now. Mental thing is future. You know,
That is
and
interesting,
the
Jack.
simple one is, you know, you might have done as a kid doing something stupid and mom going, wait till your father gets home. Yeah, I was feeling fear right now, but it wasn't because I was afraid of right now. It was when he got home, you know,
Right.
kind of thing. And, you know, what's going to happen, you know, after the exam is over, you know, am I going to, during the exam, I'm not fearing about what's going to happen now. I'm fearing
Right.
about what's going to happen, you know, when it's over. Is it going to
Mhm.
be enough? You know, that kind
Right.
of stuff. So I think that's interesting. Physical now, emotional or mental future.
Interesting.
That's
Mhm.
my
So
observation.
Shannon put in the chat that fear tends to send me into a proactive state. What can I do about that right now? Once I'm moving and taking action forward, it ebbs away. And Brent has put in the size of now. Welcome, Jackie. I'm glad you're able to join us. So, Blair, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the size of now. We haven't talked about the size of now for a while. And you have a story recognizing the size of your now.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing was I was in getting some tests done. I'm going in for a hip operation and I have to get all of these other tests done before the operation. Anyway, I was in the waiting room and chatting with these two ladies who are also in there getting tests done. And they were worried about the upcoming tests that they were going through. And what the consequence was, they were there to get their heart tested. So stress tests. And just chatting with them about getting them so that they could come back into now. They were very worried. One particularly was particularly worried about all this stuff that's happening down the road. Like, will she live or not? Because it's on her heart, obviously. You know, all of those types of projections into the future that are very reasonable, but unnecessary. And I talked to her. If she comes to right this moment right now, is she okay right now? And she said yes. And then I did the counting exercise that my mom did on me when I was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, where she said, Blair, you know, I used to have nightmares and freak out. And I keep on shaking and being scared and grabbing her and hugging her and trying to do whatever. And she just, you know, sat me aside and said, are you okay right now? And I thought about it for a second. I went, yeah, I am. My mom's here. I feel safe. I feel everything's fine. And then she told me to count to three, which I then did. And I counted 1, 2, 3. And she asked me again. And I did it out loud, by the way. And I realized I was still safe. Then she had me count to 5 and asked me the same question. I'm still safe. Then to 10, I'm still safe. 15 and 20, safe all the way through. But by the time I got to 20, I did not feel afraid. I did not feel fear. I trained my brain to recognize myself in the moment that I'm okay. And now, you know, I'm an entrepreneur and I take risks and stuff like that. Anyway, I just, you know, lately I've been relaunching training and products and stuff like that. And sometimes I get worried about the results. And I go, but I can't know the results because marketing takes X amount of weeks to operate. And is that reasonable? You know, that it takes that long? Absolutely. I can't predict what's going to happen. But am I okay right now? And the answer is still yes. And all of a sudden, my stress, my worry starts fading away because I bring myself back to the present. When I've done that with other people, I sometimes have them count out loud. And that's what I did with the ladies at the hospital. I used that and they went, wow, that totally changed me. How come they don't teach us this, someplace else? How can this is amazing. Like I feel so much better. Well, thank you. This is what I did, and that's what my mom taught me when I was a little boy. And I realized the power of how the mind model, the size of your now, if you expand your now from the past when she got bad news, projecting it into the future, finding a possible horrific event that may happen to her, and owning that in this moment as though it may be true. As you said, Patty, the mind actually, when you imagine those things, you take on all the stress, all the worry as though it is real.
Yes.
So we have to have tools to combat that ineffective model. And nobody really teaches us that unless you come here to, the BDE where we teach you mind models and how to manage your mind, actually how to take charge of it in this moment. Now you can do it with meditation. You can go do it with breathing exercises. But a lot of those take a lot longer than counting to 3, 5, 10, 15, and 20. That takes you generally 30 seconds, maybe a minute if you do it slowly, and you're fine again. You don't have to settle yourself in. I've taken meditation, and you have to have a calm mind to be able to get into meditation. So when you're all stressed out, it's sort of like, okay, I got to calm myself down to get calm. No, ain't going to work. So these things are the things that actually help us get centered and back to where we are. And so that we can get ourselves out of this past future loop and get ourselves out of reliving or inventing a life and living it as though it's already happened in our mind. And then even when I was at Life Skills College, some of my students would remember stuff that never happened to them and be terrorized about what their uncle or somebody else could have done. And they break down into tears. And they've thought about this for dozens of times. It's horrific. But when you get that out of remembering or out of reliving into just a memory, and you bring yourself to the present where you can just simply count 1, 2, 3, and your whole body unwinds. You shed the fear, you shed the sometimes grief, sometimes terror, and you get yourself back to a place right here, right now, where you're actually okay. Anyway, that's the story.
Okay. Thanks so much, Blair. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
So Leslie brought up an interesting point that he can't necessarily relate to fear as fear. But on that gray scale of fear, when you're looking at worry and you're looking at anxiety, you're looking at worry, unease, concern, doubt, those kinds of things, they're still on that gray scale. They're still, especially doubt and worry, are pretty much lodged in the future. And so when you experience doubt, Leslie, when you experience doubt, Where, where in the timeline are you? Past, present, or future?
I think I'm in the past, looking at past experiences and projecting them into the future. Of like, is it going to be more of the past in the future? Is the cycle going to continue?
Yeah, when you're looking at doubt, I agree. I think that that past future loop where the past collapses into the future and you just skip right over now. I agree. I can see that kind of thing happening. But what does doubt actually do in your life? What does it cause from a behavior point of view? What does it do in your life?
Um, Tend to become inactive.
Yes. Well said, inactive. Anything else?
Quiet, retreat into myself.
Mhm.
Okay, it sends you more internal then.
Yes.
Okay.
What about your ability to make choices or decisions?
Out the window.
Yeah. And what happens when they go out the window like that to your ability to evaluate?
Just keeps spiraling down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Almost out of control, isn't it?
it can be.
Yeah. And how many times do we have opportunities in our lives where we place ourselves in doubt because we don't know the future? And frankly, we can't know the future. We don't have a time machine. And yet we want to have people like the idea of certainty. Yet we can't have it. Like you can't be certain. The hit by the bus scenario, the whatever, what we don't know what's happening tomorrow.
No, we don't.
So what we can do is when we're stuck in doubt, we hold to certainty of what we do know, which means don't take action. And that guarantees that life goes by and we lose. That's the problem with that doubt model. But if a person could incrementally test or try things out to see if they work, then you can start testing to find out what part of this works and what part of this doesn't, to remove that level of, well, remove the uncertainty and switch it out for clarity. Because then you can start figuring out, well, I'm clear on this. This part doesn't work. I don't want to do that. This part does work. I want to do that. As opposed to certainty of doing nothing. So,
My grandfather used to love to say that not to decide is to decide. So when we are choosing not to decide, we've already made a decision, we've already made our choice. But are we necessarily aware of the opportunities that are passing us by, or the delays and the impact of delayed choices in our life as a result of doubt? Can we always know what the impact of that is on our life? So
there's so much of life that we concede to doubt and worry unnecessarily. And the funny thing is, the research has shown that 97% of all of those things we worry about never actually happen.
Never happened.
Shannon, did you want to?
You want to
I
jump
had
in?
a thought that I was noodling on while you were talking about the uncertainty piece. And for me, it circled back to self-confidence, which is something that the concept, really one of the mind models that has made a huge difference. They all have, but specifically in understanding myself, the difference between confidence and self-confidence has really helped me gain a lot of clarity on who I am. And I think that if you have self-confidence and you understand your core values, your decision making, even though it's uncertain, there's an element of peace that comes from being grounded in knowing who you are and being okay with uncertainty. And that's one of the things, because there's a lot of the worries and murkiness that the future can bring. For me, clarifying my own skill set helped me feel more self-confident to deal with the uncertainties, because we talk about all the time here, it's not that bad things don't happen to us, it's the speed of recovery, it's how do we pivot and move forward. And so accumulating skill sets that I know I can do helps me face those things in the future. And I may not know what they are, but I know how to get myself resourceful. I know how to ask questions. I know how to evaluate. And once you have some of those things, for me, over the years, it's gradually, as the skill sets that we learn here have sunk in a little bit more deeply, some of that, obviously, if we choose to focus on it, it can grow. But some of that concern about what's unknown in the future has gradually lightened and alleviated over time, because at the end of the day, I do know that I know how to shift myself. I know how, to ask for help, some of the fundamental skills that can often, be paralyzing if someone doesn't. I mean, it's one of the first things that I, teach my nephews is we get up when we fall down, even if we need a helping hand. Some people don't know it's okay to ask for help. They don't, feel that that's nothing they've ever been taught, or maybe it's something that's been shamed. So that little piece connecting to self-confidence is one of the things that, when looking at what you're talking about, has helped decrease some of the anxieties and the worries for me about the future.
Yep,
One
absolutely.
of the things that you mentioned, Shannon, that I heard in there is the power of choice.
Mm.
That we do have a choice what we engage. Once you get yourself back to the now or back into the present, as Blair was talking about, you have a choice as to where you allow your thoughts to dwell. A lot of the feelings are real. I mean, all the feelings are real, but we can't focus on all the feelings all the time.
Mhm.
So focusing on what is working for you right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things, Leslie, that I heard you talking about is, you were feeling the anniversary grief, you were feeling that sadness, but then through various choices and through using your tools, you allowed and accepted the presence of that, and then you made choices to move forward. You made choices to get back to the present. You made choices as to what you were going to focus on. Is that accurate, Leslie?
That is very accurate. That is very accurate, and it worked. It- there, as you know, there was a time not many years ago where I would not have been able to do that,
Mhm.
and it's extremely powerful to be able to do that. Shannon, you said that wonderful phrase that came up last week. I know, I know. I wrote it and I've got it here on my monitor. And one of the things that happened um, I did make some bad trade moves last week after like Thursday or Friday, whatever it was. But yeah, just pulling it back together and seeing that, I know. It just taking the time to sit and think about what's going on and making those choices. Because I can make choices. I have the ability to make choices um, to work around and turn it around.
So can I ask you some questions around that?
Sure.
Okay. So what I hear is like, you have, you have the ability to make some choices. Do you know what you did specifically in order to clarify those choices so you knew you knew?
I did some writing
Great. And what did that writing show you?
that I was able to demonstrate clarity of thought.
Okay.
And by putting it down and sharing it and getting a positive response about it
And how did you put it down? You shared it with whom?
with a friend.
Okay. So you correct me if I'm wrong here on any of this. So basically, you sat down and you said subconsciously, is what I'm doing effective or ineffective? And your answer was,
In,
well,
ineffective.
it's ineffective. So what might I do differently right now to make it effective? And you decided to write it down. What's
did. I did.
what?
No, it wasn't quite in that order, but I did a bad trade, and
So
it was a bad trade, and I said, "Shit, I'm giving money away."
so first of all, bad trade, fine. You
Yeah,
could use judgment words, it was ineffective.
yeah,
Okay, you know
because
me.
I stopped. I stopped.
Exactly, because it was ineffective. Okay?
Yeah.
The thing here that I'm trying to do is help you switch language so that the language doesn't leach back into judgmental language. You know that good, bad, right, wrong, better, best, all of those, that language will become judgmental.
Yeah.
And then you'll sort of subconsciously or consciously ask yourself, why did I do that? Then you beat yourself up. Well, let's stop beating ourselves up and just jump into, was it effective or ineffective? It's ineffective. What did you do? You stopped the trade. Was that effective?
Yes.
Great. So now you're already on an effective roll. Now, let's journal about this to see exactly what worked and what didn't work. What do we call that?
Um, that's effective. That's
It is
there's
effective.
something you've talked about this before, and I can't use your words, but it's about from moving it forward, moving it from the back of your brain to the front of your brain.
That's true.
That's what's coming to mind, but
That's good.
it reinforces it when you write it.
Absolutely, it does. Highly effective. But in writing that, does that also require you to externally verify what you're doing? Move it to something that's externally verifiable? Because you said that you shared that with a friend.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that friend was knowledgeable in trading.
Yes.
And so you got externally verifiable data from them,
Yes.
at least another opinion, if not a better view of the facts.
It wasn't specific about the trade. It was just acknowledgement of my position and acknowledging that I was able to transition from a bad spot to a good spot.
Okay, let's change that language from a bad spot to a good spot. Because though that language that you're saying, good, bad, right, wrong,
Yeah.
goes back into it's this. In that case, I don't think it is pure judgment, but it's the slippery edge of the slope. You're right on the precipice to go back into a judgment. So if you can stick with what worked, what didn't work, or what's effective or what's ineffective, much higher probability of not sliding into self-judgment. Okay?
Yes.
And the
Okay.
thing that I
see.
want to point out is that all of this stuff wound up right down at the bottom of the 3 E's. And the 3 E's, the last one that you go to is?
Evaluation versus judgment.
Right. And which one did you get into?
I got into, I was in judgment,
Yeah, but you got into,
evaluation.
and what changed in you when you got into evaluation?
I was able to do things.
Right. And your
became-
state shifted.
I became active.
And with that activity, were you not able to remove the doubt?
There wasn't doubt at that time. It was,
Okay, the doubt had already been removed.
yeah,
Okay, look, because like you go, there's a sense of not doing something effectively, correct? Or doing something bad.
mhm.
And if you stack up a few of those, do you doubt your ability to do things good or right? Do you second guess yourself more?
Mhm.
Well, then you're starting
I've
to,
turned it around to be effective.
exactly, you did turn it around to be effective. And when you turned it around to be effective, you got externally verifiable information from a third party that knows what they're talking about, correct? And then you had an opportunity to actually hold that information as a point of improvement, correct?
Correct.
And what do you call that thing that you just did to gain a point of improvement?
Being effective.
Effective, externally verifiable.
And evaluating.
Exactly. You're doing the effective and ineffective. You're getting that down highly effectively. You're moving it to something that subconsciously is externally verifiable, but you're not holding on to the evaluation part so you can lock it in.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not hearing that in your language pattern. I may be wrong. Maybe you're doing it, but I just didn't hear it in this instance. But then again, I don't also hear the benefit of people who self-evaluate effectively with externally verifiable stuff, that when they run that evaluation, they tend to gain self-confidence. Okay? Now,
Mhm.
you've got more self-confidence than you used to have by a long shot, but there's still more to go. And you can't build it without acknowledging how you took charge of your own brain.
Okay.
Brent, are you able to participate? You were on for a minute and then off. You're muted still. I cannot hear you.
Yeah, I just had to get off my feet for a couple minutes there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
how do
listening
you
to
relate to this discussion with relationship to doubt and the inactivity that comes from doubt, um, possible missed opportunities, delays, those kinds of things? Does doubt or worry impact your life at all?
um yeah, I would say doubt more than worry. I figure, worry used to, and then after a while I was like, those things never really happen. It's just easy for me to see worrying about something is very ineffective because what I'm worrying about is
Mhm.
something that's
Do
might
you know,
happen.
right? Do you notice doubt differently than you notice worry?
I do. I do. I see it differently because I see doubt based off of experience it, like a inexperience or experience, and then what's
Mhm.
coming, like a task or something I have to working on. Like, was it a couple weeks ago? It was in the coach training. It was the ability to do the coaching. Like, do I have, that ability to do that? I doubt myself. I don't, based off of the inexperience. I've never done it. So I doubt, I had a little bit of doubt that I would be able to, but it was without having tested or anything like that. That was, it would be reasonable to expect that I would be able to do it very effectively if I have never done it before and didn't have the skills. But I was doubting myself if I would even be able to do it. So,
So where are you now with that?
oh, I I don't doubt it. I just know because I was comparing myself to people who have been doing it for, year to years, and I don't, and
Decades,
that's not where I'm at. Yeah, decades. Like that's not me. That's not where
50
I'm at.
years next year.
Yeah. Yes, I'm just beginning, so it's not reasonable to compare myself to other people and that are at different stages.
So how do you view failure, Brent? How do you view failure in your life?
Now I view failure as if I just like if I don't make something, but if I give up on it, like if I just stop doing it, then yeah, I failed at it because I just given up on it. I know there was a time I view failure as if I messed up on something or failed at something that was a failure. That's how I viewed it. Like that was so it that would get me stuck in that spot because I was in a judgment based off of failure and judging myself of what I did good, bad, what I could have done, should have done. Those types of things get into that shoulda, woulda, coulda, and that really was more of a building up on the judgment, beating myself up based off of that. But now I don't. I just with using the mind models, just looking at like the data points. Like I might get into a little bit of that. Depending on the situation and the time, get into that. But being able to be aware of that, notice it, and then to quickly get out of that and focus on the information and the data and evaluate what's worked, what hasn't worked, and what might I do differently. So that
So
would be
with your coaching journey, Brent, is
yeah.
it reasonable to expect yourself to become effective as a coach without any failures?
Let me see. No, no, there would be definitely I wouldn't be able to pick it up right away and be the expert at it. That's just
What does failure do for you then?
well, and it gives me a point of evaluation to move forward, to step forward and improve for continuing. So yeah, and I find it's interesting, like, and it's step into something that's new,
Mhm.
perhaps like when you're not like as a child compared to as an adult, is like, okay, in sports, I really wanted to play sports, but when I messed up on something, I wasn't really focusing on, oh, I failed at it. I just wanted to learn everything I could and improve and get to, the best I can be. That's all. That's what I was focusing on.
Right.
So the little mess ups weren't really there to that I was focusing on. So, but then as adults, something completely new, like that stepping in and coming in. So yeah, but yeah, I don't. It doesn't hold me back uh like it used to. No, it was like 6 years ago now, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. It's
By the
getting more difficult to really hold on to like how it was. Like then the longer it gets, I don't know if that's the same
I'm
for
going to
you.
say, I think it's very healthy to let
Yeah.
go how it was. That's
Yeah,
what
I
we're
just trying to like
doing.
remember like, okay, I've come like
Mhm.
as I'm going, like this is where, I was without seeing a video, like physically seeing it.
Yes.
And then so it's getting more and more difficult, which is great because then I know I'm moving on, moving forward. So
What I did,
mhm.
Brent, is I just started putting down all the mind models you were inferring by when you were saying stuff, like
Yeah.
clarity versus certainty, feeling fast, falling forward, and ANPU, awareness, notice, process, understanding. The three E's, effective versus ineffective, external versus internal, evaluation versus comfort. Then the last one is just fail, which is first attempt in learning.
Mhm.
All a failure ever is. It's just an attempt in learning. And you cannot learn if you do not fail.
Yeah. It's that like in there was it you said like the know how versus the know what, or the
Correct.
what versus the know how.
That's
Like
right.
getting the knowledge and understanding like how it works, seeing it and knowing what, but then actually doing it and then putting it into practice. That's where you have to get that flow and practice of seeing things and doing it yourself.
Exactly. That's part of what I was working on with Leslie, was getting him to identify the mind models that he was using, because it just makes it faster. Like you said earlier, all this stuff is mind models are just a way of speeding up. Or maybe it was actually Shannon said that it's not about um, you're going to fall down or never fall down again when you learn mind models. That's BS. That's crap. Doesn't work that way. What it can do is pick you up very quickly and get you back and engaged. That's the power of mind models. Like
Mhm.
that's life does not give you perfection. It gives you opportunities. And that whole thing there is, how do I engage? Because life is not about to give you anything that's perfect,
Mhm.
except perfect opportunities to learn more. That's it. And those look like blow-ups, like mistakes, like screw ups and everything else. Well, how fast can you adjust? How many things can you anticipate and have in reserve so you can move forward? My whole thing with plan A, plan B, plan C, always have a plan A, plan B, and plan C, and keep nurturing those, focusing most of your energy on plan A, you know, 75 or to 80% on plan A. Then
Mhm.
with that, let's call it 75%. With that last 25%, 10% on plan B and 5% on plan C, or whatever that is. So you've got 20%. Yeah, you could do 15% on plan B and 10% on plan C. That's 100%. So just, figure it out, but keep those things alive and active and
Mhm.
working on them, because you don't know what's going to work or what isn't going to work. Life just throws shit at you and you got to duck and dodge, or you get hit. And then what? You get hit by that thing, and then you got to pick yourself back up. But it's a hell of a lot easier if A, you have mind models, and B, you have a plan B, because A just got blown out of the water through no fault of your own, by the way.
Yeah. You know,
So,
one thing that came up was that Patty was reminding me was the failure, like adjusting. And I remember, so like in sports, you know, when you mess up on something, especially in practice games, you have the opportunity to adjust within a minute, like seconds, minute to maybe half
Yeah,
hour. But like in business, it could be like a day, a week, you know, you mess up, you evaluate, but the next time you get an opportunity, your opportunity may be longer in between. And that's where, for me before it was be like, okay, I dwell on that piece, uh, you know, like, okay, now I messed up on this and focus on that for a while. And then like, all right, you know, I get the next opportunity just to quickly get it. But in sports, it's like bang, bang. You don't even get to a chance to even dwell on it.
yeah.
Like you got to go right now. So yeah,
And you have to adjust. And
yeah.
the funny thing is, the more that you have the mind models in your mind in life and in business, the faster those adjustments can happen,
Hmm.
to the point where you recognize that this is going sideways. And what you can do is adjust how you're thinking and how you're saying stuff and influencing others around you, and potentially adjust it so fast that it doesn't even look like it went sideways in the first place.
Hmm.
That doesn't always happen, but it can happen.
Yeah. Well, just like it's the tools to recognize, to become aware and notice that that's happening. You can make those adjustments.
Exactly.
You get the skill sets to be able to notice it and be able to make those adjustments.
Absolutely. And when you make those adjustments and you make them faster and more seamless, they are far less stressful. But you can't make those adjustments until you notice.
Hmm.
And coming back to naming and labeling, which Shannon is a big positive proponent of, as she already stated tonight, naming and labeling these things so she can pivot faster. And that's what saves my ass. I don't know how many times. I mean, even the simple thing with my mom, about counting from one, two, am I okay? Count to three, count to five, count to 10, count to 15, count to 20 out loud. How come out loud? Because it uses different parts of your brain than you just do it internally. And when you do that and then say, am I okay? Yes. Do you look crazy? Sure. I don't care. I'd rather get unstuck real fast than worry about it for a half a day or weeks like I used to before I figured this stuff out. So that's where that's at.
so Shannon,
Yeah, good.
a path out of worry, doubt, and fear. What mind models work for you? What is part of your process to get out of worry, doubt, and fear?
It's really interesting because when you started with fear, I didn't immediately resonate with that. I can pinpoint some larger events that I can recall the emotion fear, but I like the title of this one because the subtleties in the grayscale are really what Blair was just talking about in terms of noticing. It starts with that. It starts with tuning into the subtleties of daily moments and being able to pick up on what I'm feeling in a moment and allowing space for that. For me, I'm working on personally in my practice right now with not judging myself for having emotions. In that was a step I would often skip over in terms of I would have them and then tamp them down and move throughout and focus on doing. And then they would accumulate and I would have, a pressure release of some kind, whether it was a cry or some anger or something that would be like, oh, I've got some things I haven't unpacked yet. And so being able to not judge myself for having a feeling, for any feeling that I have not being wrong. It simply is. You know, the faster I can move from, oh, I did feel that, and that's okay, the faster I move on and feel better. And so being able to identify those, the more subtle ones, what were some of them? You said, I know you said worry, doubt, and fear. What were some other ones that you said?
Unease,
That one, that one.
worry,
Unease.
alarm, concern,
Okay.
doubt and anxiety to panic, terror, and horror.
Mhm. The unease and the concern for me are real subtle, but they, when you were reading them off earlier, if I can notice them and then move into naming and labeling what might have caused that, asking myself, the next question I ask myself is this something that I own? Is this a problem I own or a situation I have any ownership over? And if I don't, then the fastest way to letting go of that is just to let it go. It's not in, you know, it goes back to the power of choice. It really, I can choose to think and fester on things that I see differently than someone else that I see as, you know, oh, I see a risk here. I have a skill set. I'm looking through a particular lens, and that can cause me some concern. But at the end of the day, if it isn't my responsibility, I don't have any control over the other person. You know, I've done what I can do, and I have to drop it at that point. So the power of choice plays a big role in that amount of inner peace because I can choose to carry those little ones with me, and then I feel like the shades, you know, intensify if you don't process them. You know, they accumulate on the scale and get deeper and deeper. But if you're actually in tune to yourself, and something that I'm working to do is to not skip over the noticing step, but actually notice it, give it its moment, and then accept it. You know, be resourceful. If there's something to do, then do it. And if the thing to do is to accept it and let it go, then do that. You know, and so to be aware of what are my choices, you know, that question, what are my choices right now, and what is the most effective path to take in this moment. And once I've taken it, you know, you gotta move on. And that's a hard one for me because I have a really firm sense of justice and how I see things. You know, I see things from a really strong and clear point of view, but that doesn't mean somebody else sees them that way, or that I have any control over a situation or another. So I think the self-other situation Venn diagram plays a huge part in that too, because you can move from noticing to identifying, is this an emotion that is between me and myself, or is this between an other, or is this between a situation? And that adds another degree of clarity to it.
Yep.
Because you know, sometimes things happen and you realize, oh wait, that was another person, and oh, that person can't actually make me feel anything, and I know myself, and it doesn't really matter what they think. You know, you can pivot that and set that aside. So those are some the questions, what questions to ask myself and when. That's what I do. And most of the time it's not asking myself, but I'm a really external person, so it involves verbally processing with somebody else. You know, that externalization of it really helps me to move through it in a really efficient way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Shannon. Well, I think we're in a place where we can begin to wrap. Leslie, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Yes, thank you. 9.5 for me tonight. As the discussion progressed after the questions from Blair, I kept thinking about what was it that helped me get over the over my situation last week, and um, one of them was recalling the success formula: who, what, how.
Mm.
Also, an ANPU. And Shannon, you said something that just jumped right out at me, and is acceptance. And yeah, I accepted that I was sad,
Mhm.
allowed it to happen, and moved on from there. Doing an ANPU, doing the 3 E's, and doing the success formula, and naming and labeling. Those are all things that I'm realizing that I may not have used those exact terms while I was thinking this through. Um, but that is the process that I did do.
Mhm.
So those
How does it feel? How does
those
it
mind
feel
models
to
must have been,
identify it? How does it feel to identify it, Leslie?
feels good. I was doing it possibly subconsciously, but yeah, no,
Does,
it's positive.
does
It's good.
identifying it make it repeatable for you?
Yes, identifiable, repeatable, duplicatable.
Yes.
We'll do it again.
Yes. Do it again. Blair put another mind model in the chat with the I am process, which is identify, apply, and master.
Yes.
So again, very similar to the principle of identifiable, repeatable, and duplicatable. But when you can name and label your process, Leslie, then you're in control of doing it and running it again. If it worked for you, you can run it again.
I can.
Mhm. Well done. Well
Thank you.
done. Jane said that she's tired and she's giving her wrap up in the chat, and she gave it an 8 point, excuse me, an
8.5.
8.5 for her. So, Shannon, would you like to give your wrap up?
There was a lot in here that I could resonate with in my teaching journey and in some of the things I'm trying to develop professionally. There's a lot of things, layers to that. And so really, really good things to apply for the coming week. I remembered a quote from Becky from a long time ago that she shared with me. She said, being able to acknowledge your feelings without judgment is a top superpower next to acceptance and choice, the power of choice. So those three, acceptance, the power of choice, and acknowledging your feelings without judgment. Those three. I'm keeping a little list of the superpowers that we have. And that was one quote from her that I thought of while we were having our session today too. Because it's something I kind of bulldozed over for the first few years of learning these things, and settling in and kind of enjoying the material and really experiencing, noticing in your body. Like one of the things early on when you were talking about the subject right off the bat was one of the things I don't always notice I'm feeling something intense like fear or worry or any of those until I notice something in my body. Oh, my stomach doesn't feel right. Or, oh, I'm breathing a little faster. Or, my chest feels a little tight. Or maybe my neck and shoulders are going up here, stuff like that. And to be able to really, take the power of what we're learning to heart, because it really can affect how our body feels too, not just our mind. The ripples on the water of letting the material settle in and sink in and really affect our day-to-day living is pretty cool. I was noticing as a theme too for me how judgment kept popping up and the need to evaluate things fairly. When emotions are heightened, we can start to dip into what we think would be an evaluation, and it becomes an unfair evaluation, which then becomes judgment. So, you know, to help with that, you know, for me, a more neutral, just to notice that judgment pops up anytime a heightened emotion like that for me comes up. It's either a self-judgment or a judgment of somebody else, or perceiving judgment from someone. So those, that just is a theme for me that I'm noticing. And then the other thing, Blair, that you said two things. Life doesn't give you perfection, it gives you opportunities. And I really love that. I really, really love that. And then when a plan fails, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It's just an opportunity to learn and to grow. So
Yeah.
really cool stuff tonight. It'll be a 9 for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Brent, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Yeah. So yeah, going over the fear, that was like a spectrum of fear. I kind of had an idea. It's like you get the range of emotions, how strong feelings, and then I know it was a couple weeks ago, Blair mentioned doubt as being like the sister to fear, can lead to building up to fear, but as as that, it's not as strong, but like on the spectrum of that fear, that scale, that's on there, but like towards the I like the bottom end, not the as a lower end, not as strong towards the top end. But yeah, that's a being able to be aware of that, like that Shannon said, being able to wear your emotions, uh, and your feelings, being able to see that as strong they are and not letting them control you. You have that what they are, and accept them for that they're there, that those are, and then evaluate based off of that. So using that, it's I like the fear as something to like a gauge, like where you're at, if you're where you're present, past, present, future, where you're at, you get to now, and how quickly, the quicker you can do it, and you get to, use the skills, and the faster you can get out of those states and be effective. So I'll give it 8 for me tonight.
Thank you, Brent. I appreciate that. So for me tonight, it was an 8.5. I really valued the sharing and the depth that the people here were able to give to this topic tonight. So noticing that gray scale, that spectrum, from the little places it starts to the place that can go if it's not interrupted, and the things that sometimes fear or worry or doubt or any of those in there gives us an excuse to bypass an opportunity, to not take a risk, to protect ourselves from those kinds of things. And those things too can hold us stuck. So when I look at the various ways that our brain, if it's perceiving a threat just based on our internal thinking, our brain can do some very creative things to attempt to protect us, but it doesn't mean that those things are effective for our life. They're not effective necessarily for moving our lives forward and engaging with the possibilities and the opportunities that come our way. So I enjoyed the topic, and I really enjoyed the participation tonight. So thank you. Blair, I'm going to turn it over to you for your wrap up, and then if you could take us out, I'd appreciate it.
Super. Yeah, for me, solid 8.5 as well. I thought it was a highly effective evening. Leslie, thank you for playing and jumping in here and providing some excellent grist for the mill, as it were. So, yeah. And Shannon, thank you for noting a few things that I said and reinforcing them back to me. Because sometimes it's very effective to have somebody else say back words that you don't recognize as highly effective till somebody else says it back to you. So thank you for mirroring that back. Really appreciate it. So So anyway, tonight, thank you so much for all of you guys coming out here, and those of you that are on YouTube, thank you for coming. I would love for you to like, comment, and share on YouTube. Also, if you're interested in any of the Grow Notes, or not Grow Notes, the BDE Insider Notes, that's available on the website, and you can check things out at blairdunkley.com, and I'll see about putting things in here on some of the links in the chat. So I'll see what I can do. And live chat. I don't know if I can do this right now, but I'm going to try. Nope, it didn't take it. Anyway. So, just thinking about, there we go. Anyway, just looking at all of the stuff that's available here on the Blair Dunkley Experience. Thank you so much for coming out and joining me. I put some stuff out there on YouTube right now so that you can share it, do different things, and feel free to connect with me. You can always go to blairdunkley.com and connect with me that way. Numerous other ways. I am going to be doing another 5-day business challenge coming up. So starting on the 3rd of March. So that's happening soon. So if you'd care to join, that's free. If you'd like to join in the VIP, that's 2 hours of me working with me live for 5 days. So that's available too. I've also got some interesting stuff that I've put together for some free giveaways. So for those of you that are coming on to the 5-day business challenge, or might have been there last time, well, this time I've got some free giveaways every day for the 5 days. So it's some interesting stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming out. Anything else, Patty, that I should share?
I
Okay.
think that covers it. Thank you.
So too. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. You guys take care. Have a
Yeah.
good week. See you
Bye-bye
next.
for now.
Bye-bye.